Hi, I'm Dylan.
Hi, I'm Neil, and this is Youth on Subjects of the World, and today we're going to be interviewing Brian Connor, and please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Brian Connor. I'm the president of the National Youth Rights Association. We're a nonprofit advocating for equal rights for young people.
Nice.
Awesome.
So, no, yeah.
Yeah. To try to get the conversation going, the first question I think I'll ask for you is, what exactly does your organization do, perhaps on a daily basis, and more specifically, a day-to-day basis, and more specifically you, like as in, what are you fighting for day to day, and what is, I guess you could say the copy and paste quote you use when you're trying to explain it. You know what I mean?
Right. So we're mostly a chapter-based organization. So we've got a few chapters that we're working on starting up and supporting. And these chapters are mostly based out of schools, either high schools or colleges. We hope to have middle school chapters at some point, or even elementary school, because like that's important too. Or even just like in local communities and not based out of schools. But yeah, these chapters will advocate for issues in their local communities. And meanwhile, we're also adding a lot to our website, the national organization. We recently put up a new website just a few weeks ago, and we're still creating more content on it so we can cover a lot of issues.
So what are the main things you advocate for, other than, so you say equal rights for young people? What are some of the things you advocate for, some of the things you tell people that you think should be enacted or repealed or stuff like that, legislature, and also added to general public advocacy, because that's also very important.
Right. So yeah, the public attitude is one thing we're focused on, just getting the message out there that youth are capable of everything adults are, and yeah, that they shouldn't be discriminated against, and
purely based on age. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And expanding their political freedom in basically every way possible. The way we've been putting most of that energy so far is the voting age, since with the lower voting age.
Right. I was just thinking about that as you were saying equal rights. Yeah.
Yeah, because with the lower voting age, youth will be able to stand up for their rights more, and that will be, a great thing for getting better for youth. So, yeah, besides the voting age, which we've been advocating for like as long as the organization's been around, 20 years, and like it's just finally starting to become something that's being talked about nationally. So we hope that's going to continue moving forward. And then we've also done a lot of work around curfew laws and student rights.
So wait, whoa, curfew laws? There are actually laws about curfews?
Oh yeah, that's like lots of towns have them. In my county, it's like for teenagers who are like driving, like they can't be out on the road between like 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. or something like that, unless they're coming from a school-sponsored event. And in some towns it's like a lot worse. Like teenagers just like can't be outside at night, basically. And yeah, we've like managed to repeal or lower curfew laws in a few towns.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. So teenagers can't be out alone like past certain times. Is there actual laws in places?
Right. Yeah.
That's ridiculous. That's absolutely insane. Yeah. Is there the reason? What would the reason be? Being that teenagers are
like hooligans
going to commit crimes, like.
Right. Basically, yeah.
Or on average, they commit more. Is that justification for discrimination against lower income or a different race? No. So then why should it be justification for age? It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Yeah. That doesn't make any logical sense to me why they like, and yeah, I can understand if you're not even old enough to understand, if you're not old enough to comprehend like the basic principles of society, or you don't understand looking both ways across the road. But after that point, if you're responsible enough as a human being, as a member of society, to just simply be outside on your own, like it shouldn't really matter.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Those are really. But you said you changed a few of the curfew laws.
Yeah. We haven't done much work on that in a while, so I don't remember exactly where. But yeah, we definitely have. Yeah. had campaigns to lower curfew laws in different places.
Oh, sorry. I think you broke up for a second there. Can
Yeah.
you
And
repeat?
Dylan, when you keep adjusting, when you adjust your mic, it's really, really loud. So
It is okay.
Yeah.
I'll try not to do this.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Okay. But yeah, I was saying that, yeah, I don't remember exactly where those have been since that was like before I started with Myra. But yeah, in the past we have lowered curfew laws in a few different towns.
What's
awesome.
like the process of doing that?
Oh, yeah. So for just kind of amending any local legislation, I mean, I think the first part is to just get like a group of people to advocate for it, like find a
Like
couple.
just a petition or anything like any like you would, I guess you would like you would with any trying to amend any law in a local area.
Right.
And presenting your viewpoints to the local legislature, which tends to be very easy since I'm guessing these laws are based on the vast majority of the time, if not all the time, based on a local level. So then it's a lot easier, thankfully, to change those things than to change, for example, things like schools, which are normally they have different branches of the school system and how that works, and that can be very hard to change, especially with the political stigma around the school system and how we should treat them and how we should treat young people in the school system. And it's very hard to change those things because, however, with curfew laws, it can be seen as probably quite a bit easier with simple logical debate rather than these things that we have rooted in our culture, like schools.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I think the first step to kind of amending any local legislation is to just kind of build a coalition however you can, like get other students at your school or and just like other organizations in your community to join you and voice their support, and then find like the most sympathetic legislator you can. I mean, it will definitely depend on where you are, but like there could be like a few like people on your board of supervisors or school board or whatever who like do support the change you're trying to make, or there might be like it might be like everyone's really hostile to it and you need to like get a lot of like constituents to talk to them to get them to change it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like however, yeah, so you build the coalition and then just like use that to talk to the legislators, like organize events or like do whatever other kind of outreach you can to just kind of make it clear that like this is something people care about and they need to change this.
That's very interesting. How did when and how did you get started in the movement?
Right. So I got started a little more than a year ago, around the time I graduated high school. I've actually been passionate about youth rights since like my sophomore year of high school. When I saw like these like final presentations for a class on like the social movements of the 60s. And that made me realize just kind of how ageism is kind of like deeply embedded in like pretty much every other major problem in our society, and just how much is wrong in our society and how like a movement for youth rights would change so many other things. Mm-hmm. So I was just kind of like looking for how I could make a difference in that way. And then around the time I graduated, I found Naira, just like going through the internet and stuff, and then just like slowly got more involved with them over the past year.
That's really cool.
So what kind of things do you advocate in schools or for education in general? What do you normally advocate for there? And what do you and also branching off from advocation? What do you believe that? Because you can't necessarily advocate exactly for what you believe, because you have to find middle ground there. Obviously,
Right. So I mean, most of the campaigns we've done in schools have been things like dress codes or like kind of other specific policies like that are, I mean, really obviously like ageist, but I mean, it's really hard to make any fundamental change is like
especially from within, especially inside the system.
right. But yeah, eventually, I mean, we believe that like youth should have the right to whatever kind of education they want.
Mm-hmm.
And what kind of and what kind of education? What do you mean by that? Like,
So do you like I guess I'm trying to I think Dylan and I are both trying to kind of steer the conversation a little bit towards alternative education and what your experience is in that realm, if any.
Right. So yeah, we think that like schools should be students should have the amount of rights they have in Sudbury schools and other democratic schools where they're able to decide on what the school's policies are, and where they aren't forced to deal with like grades and credits and required classes and all of that. And we also, support youth being able to unschool themselves and being empowered to do so. And like any other option, that like anywhere in between like unschooling and having a conventional education, because we think there are just infinite possibilities for what education can be.
It is really interesting.
So
like, Neil, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if you know, but Dylan and I, we go to a Sudbury school. We go to South Jersey Sudbury School, and I think that people don't seem to get the concept of kids being able to create and enforce legislature. Our school's been around for 3 years, and Dylan and I have been there actually since the first day of the school opening, and we of course make and enforce the rules like any society would, because I feel like I don't think that people in general, even kids to an extent, which I find quite shocking, which just shows like the cultural impact that this has of youth can't be trusted like at all. And I think that I feel like that's kind of saying, well, and then you have people point to examples. And if you look at the amount of people that do things that are wrong, like commit crimes, sure, those people can't be trusted, just like those youth can't be trusted. But that doesn't mean that entire group should be barred from earning that trust, or just at least having that trust as a default. And I think that a lot of parents and a lot of outsiders are shocked just by the fact that they think that we just spend all the school money on candy or something like that. Which of course we don't do, otherwise we wouldn't, exist. But that's something that could technically happen if we actually voted on it, but that would never come to the attention. In fact, that person would probably end up getting written up for just wasting school meetings time with a pointless issue.
Right. I mean, that's kind of the idea behind democracy, right? Like just having democracy is scary because it can lead to bad things happening if like enough people wanted to, but
but if enough people wanted to, an argument can be made, shouldn't that then happen if enough people really actually want that? And also, you see, it's kind of funny because you see a lot of the arguments being made against things like Sudbury or self-directed learning in general and other platforms. You see those arguments also being made against like democracy back in the days where democracy was not prevalent at all, and those arguments are being made against democracy. Like, if enough people want it, should it be justified at all? I'm sure you believe in democracy existing in America and around the world. It's kind of interesting how the same arguments are being made against democracy that are being made the same arguments are being made that are against democracy are also being made against these alternative education outlets.
Right.
Yeah.
Bro, what do you think the movement's like? What do you think their biggest accomplishment has been?
Well, I think probably, I'd say the work we've done around the voting age. So I think around 2010-ish, we submitted kind of just a brief on why we think the voting age should be lower, that eventually made it to the Tacoma Park City Council. And then they like turned that into legislation and lowered the voting age for the city of Tacoma Park, Maryland. And since then it's caught on to 3 other towns and just spread into this kind of national movement where there's legislation in like states and counties and cities across the country to lower the voting age, and even some like federal legislation that's been introduced.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. Like what, this is something that's like interests me. If you yourself, like I know most likely there's no way anyone could ever get the voting age lower to 10. Honestly, I don't even, like what would your optimal voting age be? Because I know you're advocating for like 16, right?
Right. So yeah, eventually, I mean, we're advocating for 16 because that's an age that makes a lot of sense for the way things are right now. Because yeah, like 16 is the age for a lot of other things like drinking and working and paying taxes. And I mean, I think 16-year-olds are like functionally adults in our society already. So it's just a matter of making most people realize that, which I think lots of people are realizing now. Like I've gotten my like local Democratic Party to come out in support of lowering the voting age to 16. So it's like really catching on. But yeah, eventually we'd support lowering it to 12 or 13 because like that has been the age of adulthood for most of history, just like biologically and stuff. Like 12 and 13-year-olds are adults and yeah, historically have been treated like adults. But yeah, then even further than that, like we would support just not having a voting age because just the idea of like saying some people can vote and some people can't is discriminatory and means we're not really a democracy. Well, that's true.
And what's your argument to people saying like, you're just saying like a toddler just wouldn't vote because they're a toddler?
Right. I mean, I think if a toddler genuinely wants to vote, then they should be able to. I don't imagine many toddlers voting.
Yeah. Would you say like, I guess that's not really, I guess that's pretty a non-issue.
And it is an issue that people bring that up.
No. I had a thought and I thought, well, that's kind of,
but
I was thinking like, what about parents like taking little babies?
See, that's the problem that I yeah, it's not necessarily taking babies or anything doing that, because that won't happen. You have to actually go in the booth independent. I think that'd be a stipulation, and you have to have the comprehension to read it and check a box. Like you have to, like if you don't have that comprehension, clearly you're probably either being manipulated, or you're probably being like, oh, go in there and vote for this person because that's what I say, and but so I think that's why you probably have to go in there. But technically, there actually is. You can actually go on the ballot with somebody. So you don't.
I voted before. Well, I just pressed the button. My mom was like, "Vote for whoever you want."
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's funny. But so the only, I guess, it's less of a problem of me not trusting the kids. It's more a problem of me feeling like not after you're. I think after you're 10, I think it's fine. But I think earlier than that, I feel like there's a problem of the parents, more so the parents more intertwined with the political rhetoric are gonna perhaps force their kids to vote for. And you see this even in families when people are not children, right? Like you see, I feel like it would be especially potent with kids, considering that the parents, in most cases, not all cases, have every single influence. They basically control every aspect of their life except that, right? So that would just be another thing add to that, which I think would almost perpetuate the problem of people not thinking for themselves, which is why I would feel like it may be better to allow or at least PSAs to saying let your kid form their own opinion, or if you want to inform them, that's fine. But if you're going to be forcing your belief on them, especially at such a young age, like if you want to, I have no problems with someone like, I guess, forcing their beliefs on them by saying what they think you should do or how they think how they would vote or whatever. That's fine, but that's not what I think. But the problem is when someone who might be literally listening to their parent for everything, including like what to eat, what to do, everything, what to wear. I think that can be really, really damaging to a child and could basically make them vote the way the parents vote for the rest of life, even more than they do now. Because keep in mind, that's what that does happen now. kids still vote the way their parents do.
That's not true. Like there have been lots of studies done on that with like young adults who are able to vote, and with 16 and 17-year-olds, and even a bit with younger children and stuff. And like actually people don't really follow the way their parents vote. It's like from studies that have been done on like mock elections with kids and stuff, they actually they are able to form their own opinions and such. And there was also like an argument made about like giving like women the right to vote, for example, that like because their husbands had so much control over their lives at that point that they
Right.
just
So it's more of a cultural thing, getting parents to not try to control the aspect of their lives. Then it should be a legislative one.
right. I think it's important for there to eventually be legislation that takes away the control parents have over their kids' lives, along with the cultural change. And I think because like legislation happening can like advance the cultural change and such, and just make it so that people can't have that kind of, and then just puts a check on people trying to have that kind of authority. But like by giving kids the right to vote, that would mean that they could, and I'm sure they would, like help take away the power their parents have over them.
Mm-hmm. So what do you mean by legislature taking the power where the parents have over them? Obviously, I think you'd be against things like laws saying you can beat your children. It's absolutely ludicrous. I think most people are against that even are not in favor of allowing children to have more control over their own lives. Even they, I think, are opposed to the idea of
being able to beat your child.
Being able to beat your child.
Right. Look, corporal punishment actually is still like legal in many states, and like
right, which is absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, people still do that, but we think that eventually, like children should basically be treated. There just shouldn't be age discrimination in law. Like laws shouldn't say that like these people have more rights than these people because they're older, because that's just immoral and takes. It enables child abuse among so many other things.
Mm-hmm. It's really fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I know, even like being like, I even know most kids don't think that like they should really be that free, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, that's something that shocks me. I think it speaks to just how deep this, like I've seen parents like directly say to me, like while their kid's literally right there, oh, my kid wouldn't be good in a Sudbury school. They're not like you. They just sit around and be lazy all day and not do it. It's like, Jesus Christ, your kid's right there.
Right.
Like it's kind of the submissive type thing, right? Like totally submissive and just kind of accepts like, all right, this is how I am. And the problem with that is not only is it, I think, very damaging, and even if it isn't damaging, I think it's extremely immoral. And even if not, those things are going to be passed on to their child.
Right. They, just like gives, one huge part of just adultism and such is like internalized adultism, where kids should just kind of grow up believing that they're inferior to adults, and then when they're adults they like believe that even stronger, that like they just end up having these discriminations themselves against like young people even though they were young themselves.
Because they think that they have the power now.
Right.
Power. Yeah, I know. I definitely feel that like a lot of the little kids at our school, they think that me and Neil are like the adults there, along with the guy Brian. They think that we're the ones. Like I've definitely been called Mister before, which I felt was kind of odd. Like, and they definitely treat me a lot. They definitely treat me and Neil a lot differently.
And people definitely ask me like, oh, what should I do? What should I do? And I think it's, and they are very small children. So I think it is their prerogative if they want to come up to us and ask us advice on this. And I think it's part of what makes, Sudbury great. If you want advice and you want to be guided, you can be. But if you don't, again, totally up to you. So, but there are other times I'll be like, okay, well, can you solve that problem yourself? Like trying to nurture and I think it's up to the older students to try to do that. Like help people where they can be helped, where they need to be helped, where they want to be helped, and most importantly, where they want to be helped, and then try to, and as, I think it's your duty as perhaps not even older student, just a person who has been there a while, to try to nurture the independence. So yeah, it's very interesting, and there's nothing against trying to get help from someone who you think is more experienced than you in something, or even who you think is older than you, because generally, I mean, this doesn't, I think that, say, I understand the whole argument, well, people who are older have more experience. Okay, sure, fine, they have more experience, but you can't just say that. You have to independently demonstrate from that statement why you do. Like, no one would ever go up in court. You can't be like, well, I tell the truth a lot.
Yeah.
That's it. No, you have to demonstrate independently. Like in JC, you can't just, like, we have kids who have a history of lying, so we treat them differently, and we don't take their words seriously at all because they constantly lie. And then we have kids that always tell the truth, and we take their word very, very seriously because they always tell the truth, because they've proven. It seems like there's this exemption.
That's how I get away with so many things.
It seems like there's this, like, exemption when it comes to. It seems there's this exemption when it comes to this exemption of burden of proof when it comes to people making these blanket statements on youth.
Right, definitely. Yeah, just blanket statements about anything. I mean, just take away from just understanding life, right? Because, like, saying this person is more life experience than this other person doesn't really mean anything, because, like, everyone has their own unique life experience, right? Like, they have not, like, been in poverty, for example. So, like, a 5 or 6 year old in poverty, like, knows a whole lot about some aspects of in life than I, like, ever will, probably.
Right. Like, I was talking to this female dog, and she was
Oh my God, Neil.
I did not like her. I did not like this woman. She was not a nice person. She was very dismissive. So I was having this argument with this one woman who was very reasonable. It'd been going on for multiple days, and she was reasonable. She was wrong, but she was reasonable. And she came up with, she was saying, she was using many fallacies to support her position, and just ridiculous things. One of the stupidest argument made by her was, we were arguing about the internet was a good thing or not, and I was arguing, of course it is. It's the entire, it's allowed so much awareness. You say, why don't you just go to the library? Like 300 books versus the entirety of the collective knowledge of the human race. Really? So she was saying stuff like, well, you could go to the library. This is a stupid argument. She said you could go to the library and you could go on your computer and go on the internet. I was like, why would you go to the library to go on the internet? And she was saying, well, the library, they can direct you to the proper sources. What is she? I mean, the problem is there's a stigma against all things that are new, like that, and this huge stigma against everything that is new, that it must be bad. And it's fine to be skeptical of things that are new, but the fact she's acting like these librarians are professors and scholars. They sit there and cite books. Like, I'm not trying to devalue the librarian profession for all you librarians out there. I'm just saying that don't act like these people. They're pretty good experts on the library that they're at, and quite a few books. Which is a good thing to be expert in. Awesome, that's great. Books are pretty cool. Books are, I think the best part about books are that they can describe a situation in a way that movies still can't.
Yeah, but, like movies are all visual and pretty much can't have like any exposition.
Yeah.
But books are all exposition.
Yeah, the book can describe something. Maybe not a visual. Maybe the book can't.
Books can describe thoughts.
Right, in a way that movies can never do. Even if they said what's inside their head, they can't do that. But I digress. The point, but in this whole conversation with her, this other woman, she kind of tried to, I guess, offload me to this other person. But she was trying to get this other woman involved who was a teacher. Or actually, she was a teacher too, but this other woman who was also a teacher. And she was very, 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 not aggressive, but assertive in the point where she she wouldn't even let me speak. Like I would be saying, like she used every point that I said, she would just kind of dismiss as a, well, how old are you? I said, well, at the time um, I was 14 or yeah, 14. I said, oh, I'm 14 years old. And she said, oh, well, you haven't even gotten started with life experience. I'm like, and I was trying to say, well, yeah, I haven't, but that you have to demonstrate independently why that's a determining factor here. And she was just like, and she was just totally dismissing and totally like going off on this huge rant. And it was kind of insane that how, and it's like, yeah, and I think she overheard that I was really into nutrition. She's like, do you know what a journal is, a medical journal? I was like, yeah, I do. I literally, this is what I do. Like Dylan knows how much I'm into nutrition. Like I seriously have, I mean, it's what I've been into for the past 3 years, basically. And I like, yeah, I read some of them. And she's like, and not one of those journals where you write your thoughts in. Like, I know. And it's just absolutely ridiculous. I was fuming for at least a week after that because it was so, there's nothing I could have done that would have changed her mind because in her mind, and not just this is I'm trying to kind of link this in with a broader example. People have this, and this is with a lot of issues too. People have these preconceived notions. If you have a preconceived notion that is stopping you from even hearing a person's argument, you should probably challenge that preconceived notion because then how are you ever going to change your mind? And if you can't change your mind, then you're not open-minded. You're closed-minded. You should hear so many people talk about how I'm so open-minded. Have you ever changed your opinion on anything major even once? Like seriously, or have you even heard a dissenting opinion and either A, refuted it or B, changed your mind? That's basically, or at least admit that you don't know what you're talking about. It's it's absolute, and people love to claim that they're open-minded too. People just love to claim that they're open-minded.
Oh, Brian, I did have a question. What's your experience been with like teachers, like talking to public school teachers about all this, about your issues, or have you not really got the chance to talk to them about it?
Oh yeah. Let's see. I guess it was kind of like one particular teacher I had at the school I was at like got me into youth rights in the first place. I actually like kind of like two teachers. Like there was this one teacher I had like freshman year of high school who like just mentioned that like age discrimination was a thing. So that kind of got me thinking like, oh, like yeah, that's kind of true. And then like the next year, I had a teacher who just like really opened my eyes to kind of just everything that's wrong in our society and how kind of like ageism is like very much at the center of that. And I was at like a private school and stuff, so like it's probably not reflective of like what most teachers are like, but yeah.
In the private school, it might have been even harsher.
It wasn't that kind of, yeah, it was like a very like, it was like liberal arts school. It wasn't like,
okay.
Yeah, like.
So probably a lot more open-minded than in that case.
Right, yeah, it wasn't like democratic or whatever on the level of like Sudbury schools and stuff.
But it wasn't necessarily public school, how it was.
Yeah, it was, private school, and it was a lot of emphasis on like student autonomy and stuff. And I guess like in general, I guess teachers, a lot of teachers there were, did think that like, yeah, students should have a lot more freedom over their education than like even that school gave them. And a lot of teachers were, just definitely understood the idea of youth rights, since they like were in this environment where there were a lot of students who like were really empowered to follow their passions and stuff, and like were demonstrating that they were like deserving of more rights and stuff. But I guess, yeah, probably, then a lot of teachers were also probably not different than like most other people would be and what they think about youth rights.
This is really interesting. I would like to say, sadly, John Taylor Gatto died.
Yeah, right.
Today or yesterday. Just talking about teachers that were very open-minded about that kind of stuff. I remembered. It does suck a lot. That is really interesting that you had teachers like that. I never really had any teachers like that even really propose. I mean, I was only public school up until 6th grade, so it's not like they were talking about the most advanced stuff. But like, I never really had any that seemed they cared all that much about youth rights, or really even knew that they existed. But it has been interesting. Like a pretty good friend of mine, he is like he's a public school teacher, and we like, so it's me. It's like my group, a few group of friends. Like I play this card game called Magic the Gathering, and I'm really into that. And he also plays that. I met him just going to like local, like weekly tournaments, and we play on the weekends too.
I feel like he kind of thinks our school is Lord of the Flies or something.
Yeah, a little bit, definitely. But I've been definitely trying to open up his mind and like my friends in that group, because I have like two worlds. I have like that world of friends and like my Sudbury School of Friends. So it's
Somebody's
interesting.
better.
But it's like, it's interesting. I've been trying to open up their minds about it. Like we went to this tournament in New York, and on the way back, my friend's parents, they were driving us back. We were talking about like unschooling and trust and that kind of stuff. And that was really interesting, like opening their minds to it a little bit at least. But mainly it's been interesting talking to my like public school teacher friend and his girlfriend, because they both play and they're both teachers. So it's been interesting talking to them and getting their like point of view on that kind of stuff. And I don't think they completely get it yet. Like his girlfriend gets a little bit more than he does. But it's been really interesting, like talking to him about it and getting their point of view, because he was like, well, I don't think he's not like a great example, because he went specifically to like the inner city, and he's like, well, they're pretty like rough and tough, so I don't know how they would do in that kind of environment.
Maybe they've never been exposed to that kind of environment.
I know that was my retort.
Right. I think those are
Not saying that that's a valid argument. That's just saying what he
right.
said.
I mean, those are the most important kinds of students. Since I mean, just kind of a big argument that's like made against like Sudbury schools and unschooling in general is that like it's just for privileged students, which I mean isn't true, but like there's there's been like research done by like I mean Peter Gray and like other people as well about how like I mean just how like showing that unschooling and democratic schools work, and like a lot of that has been done on like I mean I don't know how your Sudbury school works, Neil, but like there's I mean a lot of them have like sliding scale tuition where
Yeah, that's ours.
never turns
Yeah,
down
I mean,
because of
I think almost every Sudbury school has financial aid. Ours has financial aid, of course, and
having financial aid I mean still can mean it turns a lot of people away, but I know I mean some of the schools are like make a policy of like they don't even have a set tuition. They like ask the family how much they earn and stuff, and then charge an amount based on that. So they've just like never turned.
That's essentially what we've done.
I mean, that's kind of what we do, because everybody who enrolls in the school basically applies for financial aid, and we go through facts, and facts just determines what it is and spits out a number. And I mean, the only reason we have that tuition is so we can maintain the school. We're never going to deny somebody because they can't pay anything.
Right.
We're never going to deny anyone because they can't pay an amount.
It's just like we have a set tuition, because if you can't afford that, like that's great. Like if you can't afford that, just
Right.
like people see it.
Yeah,
But-
so that's true about a lot of Sudbury schools, but it's kind of something that's overlooked. Like people just hear about these schools and say that, oh, that's like only for rich kids, but like that's
You know, I've had a little experience with that. Like my dad, he likes the school a lot, but he was like telling his friends about it, and that's like their biggest thing. And a lot of people who message us is like, oh, well, I don't know how we could afford a private school. And our retort is like, well, you can pay nothing. if you
First,
really want.
yeah.
But
yeah,
wait,
you
wait,
can't pay
wait.
nothing.
And so then, but it seems like the deeper issue is honestly within trust. Because my dad was talking to his friend, and he was like, wow, I don't know how we could ever afford that. And, you know, he said, like, well, you don't have to pay anything. And he was like, well, also, I don't know how I could, like, trust my kids. And that seems like a few times that's come up where it's like, not necessarily the money. The money's just an excuse. Like for not wanting to trust their kids, which I find is kind of interesting, because this guy was like, well, my kids aren't allowed to use their phone past 8:30, and I check them every single night, and they're not allowed to be out past 8:30 or something like that. And I was like, fuck, that sucks ass. Like,
Right. It's not really like facilitating an environment of trust there.
yeah, so I was like, that's not,
Trust your kids. They're not going to trust you.
I know. I was like, that makes absolutely no sense at all.
Like,
So,
you wouldn't treat another adult like that, right? Like
yeah.
your trusted
Like
them.
if you're the boss of someone, you would not be like, well, let me see your phone, okay? Like you have to give me your phone.
Texting any boys after 12 p.m. Like it's absolutely ridiculous. And the problem is, it's the whole forbidden fruit concept. Like, if you really don't want your child to do something, first of all, try to at least talk to them on a human level. I feel like, and then be like, oh, well, that doesn't work. Well, maybe because you're not trusting them in other aspects. Like, why would your kid ever listen to you and trust you if you don't give them trust in other aspects of life? That's what really gets makes me mad when I hear these people talking about, like, oh, my kid, whatever, he's always like sitting at home doing nothing. Maybe that's because every other hour of his day is scrutinized and, picked apart and said, do this, you can be doing this more productive. And that's extremely damaging. And why would they ever want to take the initiative on their own if everyone is just doing whatever, everyone is just basically making this person do whatever they want, and they basically have no need to take their own initiative. And they even have been taught that them taking initiative is wrong unless it fits into the parameters of what people think is good. Which in that case, is that really even taking your own initiative?
Right.
Mm-hmm. That's what me and Neil, like I was telling you, Brian, before the call about, like, how me and Neil did that workshop on trust.
Right.
That's like our biggest thing. It's just like all about trusting kids.
Yeah.
And I think that's the basis
Or
of
just give it a chance. Like, there's no harm in just giving trust a chance. Like, and I'm not saying like you're weak. Like, people expect instant results, and that's one of the most damaging things like that happen in Sudbury too. People expect instant results, and you cannot expect instant results with you just can't expect instant results with Sudbury. You can't expect instant results with anything.
Right.
Would you ever send anyone to a job or college and be like, okay, 5 days later, do I see improvement here? Do I see improvement here? No, you just got there. Like, there's this whole concept of de-schooling that is thrown around in Sudbury schools, where people need to really realize that their time is their own and really find out what they want to do, and kind of untrain the idea of either I need to plan my day and do anything that, you can plan your day. I plan my day sometimes a lot. You need to plan your day to please anybody else other than yourself. And to be clear, I'm not saying don't plan for the future. Plan for the future. Do whatever. Like, it's a good thing. That's helping yourself too. But if you're planning for anything that you really just don't care, I really don't like a lot of the times people be like, oh, you got to go to college. You got to go to college. I think college is a great resource, sure. But the problem is that you can't, the fact that people are sent to college and be like, well, the next step is, of course, college. Like, college shouldn't be an of course. If you want to do something that requires college, then you should go to college. Anything else, I don't see like the reason for that. And especially if you're sitting there and you still don't know your major and you're dropping tens of thousands of dollars, like, that's insane money to be dropped. And that's the thing I really like about Sudbury schools. You get to choose what you want to do. You get to choose, what do I want to do? You get to explore your interests, and later in life, finally figure out, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And you can confidently say that. And then, and only then, you can be like, well, what do I need to do this? Oh, maybe I should learn this skill. Maybe I should learn this skill. Oh, I'll learn these skills. Oh, do I need to go to college? Okay, I need to go to college. That's when I think college should be started to play. Not as your parents going, when you go to college, when you're going to college, how are your SAT scores? Do the PSATs. Like, it's absolutely insane. This madness, this hysteria around college. And college is good. On average, people who go to college make more money than people who don't. However, I think there is a little statistical hiccup there, because that probably also includes people who are homeless and not people who actually go out to become a member, and people who are just working minimum wage salaries not to make a living wage. If you actually want to make a living wage and you actually want to pursue a career independent from college, I don't think the statistic necessarily ring true, because they're taking into account all people who don't go to college. It's like taking all people it's like taking, let's say all people of a certain race. Well, if you're in this race, you're more likely to do this. Yeah, but what if you don't meet the parameters? That's extremely racist, right? So why isn't that? So why wouldn't you take those statistical why would you take that into account when looking at college? Well, because college is super expensive and the government's making money off of it and the colleges are making money off of it because of the student loans. And
Right.
it really is, I'm not saying don't go to college. Again, I'm not saying that. If you want to do something that involves college, go to college. But other than that, why would you drop 30 grand, like easily 30 grand, sometimes a year on something that you don't even, what should I do for the rest of my life again? Let me throw it at a dartboard and see what I should get. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Right. I think, I mean, another part of it is it just it just values like people's future based on money and stuff, like how much they earn, which is how,
Right.
I mean, the big part of how just like adultism plays into like all these other societal injustices and such is because it's just kind of all geared into like pushing people toward where they can make like the most money and stuff, which like is definitely, I mean, it's been proven to like not be how people lead the most fulfilling lives. And like and then it also just like means that like anyone who fails along this line of schooling just is completely ignored. And
Mhm. I do like so. Yeah. I think it's really interesting to like. I went on a rant at this a couple weeks ago about like with college loans and how expensive college can be. It's basically like the mess up system why college is so expensive and how like kids get the short end of the stick with that kind of stuff. Like the government makes money, the colleges make money, but the kids are stuck with hundreds of $1,000s in debt and no idea what they want to do. It's like they're grown up in a society where they're told they have to do this thing and spend $200,000. It's just like a fact of life that you have to be in debt for the first 20 years of your life. Just how it's like that's just how it is. Like just deal with it. But it's like that's so stupid. Like that's like one of those stupid things I've ever heard. It's like starting out someone young. Like when you're 18, like I don't expect myself to know what I want to do for the rest of my life at 18.
I mean, no one does.
No one does. Yeah,
Very few
Yeah.
people even do one thing for the rest of their life.
exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
Most people like change careers halfway through their lives.
Exactly.
So just the whole idea of like majors. I mean because an issue with what you've been saying about how like if you're in college, it kind of seems like a waste or whatever if you don't. I mean, if you don't know what you're doing and stuff like that's. I mean, just puts pressure on people in college to like choose a major and choose what they're going to do with like their lives and stuff. But like that isn't a choice you should have to be asking anyone to make at any point in their lives. Like people
yeah, exactly.
follow their passions and like do what they love however old they are, and like they shouldn't have to restrict themselves to a specific major or specific career path or anything like that.
I definitely agree. It's just like it sucks that like society has turned college almost into something that you must have, otherwise you can't. Like I know even my mom feels like that sometimes. You know, she's more open-minded than a lot of other parents. I mean, I go to a Sudbury school. But, have you had any like proponents to these issues that you've had to like face? The people that have been against youth rights?
Oh, like any, yeah, I mean, like a lot of issues. I mean, most people aren't like 100% for it, but it's just a matter of like wherever someone's at, like nudging them along, I guess. I mean, like 20 years ago, like I mean, like most people were probably like leaning towards being against like LGBTQIA plus rights, but like now, just like a few decades after that, like stuff is just slowly moving towards supporting that, right? And like youth rights, I think it's just a few decades behind that probably. And that, yeah, it's just about probably no one's, I mean, very few people are totally for it. And very few people are totally against it. It's just like a
Mhm.
of how much people believe these different prejudices and stuff.
Well, that is really interesting. Like, all right. Trying to think what to ask. Do you have any like plans for the future of the group?
Yeah, so and I think this has just been a really great year for youth rights, which with things like March for Our Lives, like really youth-led things that are showing that youth are in a lot of ways better than adults at certain things, especially making a difference because I think part of it is just an thing about like younger people not having a lot of these beliefs and fears about themselves. And another part of it is just the way it's just been set up, like players don't really have anything to lose. So they're like able to take these risks that like most activists aren't going to take. So I think, yeah, like these movements like March for Our Lives are making society realize that youth are capable of making a difference, and it's going, and along with that, like people are finally discussing lowering the voting age to 16. So I think those conversations are just going to continue, and we're going to see more youth-led social movements, and those will just slowly lead more towards youth rights with the voting ages in more places being lowered, and yeah, hopefully will like 16-year-olds will be able to vote anywhere in the country within the next 5 or 10 years, we'd hope.
That would be really cool. That if it ended up being like that.
Yeah, and also so what would you say is the most common reaction when you talk about youth rights, or when you present an argument? What would you say is the most common reaction? Like if you want, you can just say you can propose one of your arguments, and then you can say what the common reaction or I guess common opposition to it would be. Because I'm not looking for, because I'm wondering what people's common reaction is, what people's common reaction in the context of opposing it would be.
Right. Are you talking about like kind of like the voting age specifically, or just youth rights in general?
Youth rights in general, probably, because I think voting age is an issue that is kind of independent of treating youth like more equal. It is, of course, part of it, but I think that's something people are more easy to digest rather than something that's, for example, Sudbury schools.
Right. Yeah, I guess.
Which is kind of funny since that's literally voting. So yeah.
Right. I guess probably the most common thing I hear about like Sudbury schools and unschooling and all that kind of stuff is that it's just only for certain types of kids, and that I mean either because of just like
I definitely just touched on that, how like I don't have parents like basically insult their children when they're
Yeah, like what were you saying?
Oh, I mean, go ahead.
Oh, well, the guy I was mentioning before, my public school friend, he was saying, he was like, well, Dylan, you guys are kind of like in the elite of kids. Not so much as like, he said not so much as like money. Yeah, he was like, not so much in money. I was like, well, yeah, exactly. I was like, well, no, they don't really get a chance otherwise. No one else does.
Yeah.
So what were you saying, Brian?
Yeah, so I mean, whether you're talking about like innate things like thinking some kids are smarter than others, I think. But I mean, I think just the whole idea of like intelligence is kind of ageist BS, just like classifying people based on how smart they are, when like intelligence is really just a completely subjective thing. Like everyone's smarter than.
Yeah, I don't understand when people bring up like things like IQ, because IQ has nothing to do with knowledge. Like you can have an extremely low IQ but have an extremely high knowledge base on something. Sure, you could argue that IQ has a correlation to your ability to comprehend or to retain or to pursue knowledge, but you can't argue the fact that IQ and knowledge are separate. correlation aside, it's not a causation. Knowledge and IQ, yeah. And if someone compliments you on how intelligent they are, they're not saying that because, oh, I looked at his IQ score. That guy's intelligent. No, they're talking about because you know what you're talking about. They're saying that because you know what you're talking about a topic, which is knowledge. And knowledge is not something you're born with.
Right. And I mean, just the like whole idea of knowledge and stuff and ranking people based on how much they know, even if you could do that objectively, I think still doesn't take a lot into account because, I mean, everyone just has their own unique skills and ideas.
Like someone with a very high, because something that is correlated with IQ and is causative with IQ is ability to understand logic problems easier. And just because you have an ability to critically think faster than the average person doesn't mean you can work with people. Like if you have an extremely high IQ but extremely low EQ, or basically emotional intelligence, and if you basically just can't interact with people, and as you're very rude to people and you are very dismissive towards people, you're not going to be able to work with people regardless of how high your knowledge base is or IQ is. It has nothing to do with that. Like I don't think people seem to understand that. Like success and even being able to comprehend something or talk about something is something very intricate. And I think that intelligence is such a complex topic. When people say, oh, you're really smart, they really don't know. I feel like it's because intelligence is still a debated topic in the scientific community. It's not.
Right. I mean, I think just a problematic topic because, I mean, it doesn't.
It's very hard to quantify.
Right. I mean, kind of where I was going with this is just like people of, I mean, various kinds of like mental disabilities or whatever, like they're still smarter than other people in a whole lot of ways. Like everyone is
someone who may have for example, who may be who may have some sort, because I think to be classified as actually mentally retarded, your IQ has to be below 55, but that doesn't mean that doesn't change anything other than that's only that independent factor, and it may change your ability to comprehend things, comprehend certain things, B, retain certain information, or C, your ability to pursue information. But that doesn't change the amount of information that you may or may not have, and that doesn't change your ability to interact with people, which is also very important and is very undervalued.
Right. There's, yeah, I mean, so many different things people can be good at. It just, yeah.
That also would be described as intelligence.
Right. And
like being to be able to articulate yourself like we are right now.
Right. And I mean, and then beyond, like any kind of innate factors, I mean, the argument people make that, like, democratic schooling and unschooling only are, just only for, like rich white kids and stuff, which is, I mean, there's what we were talking about earlier with the sliding scale tuition that like your schools have and stuff. And then there's also, like there have been studies done on unschooling showing that like a large percentage of unschooling families make less than 25K a year. So like both unschooling and democratic schooling are definitely not just for rich students. And I think it's important to look at like specifically how they affect lower income students.
And look, in the way the system is built, and the schooling system is built, and the way separated schools in a way are disadvantaged in some ways than public. Obviously, they're disadvantaged as compared to public schools. There clearly there is a problem with I just lost my train of thought. Dang it. I guess we can just move on. I'll come back to it if I remember. I thought it was a good train of thought too.
God, Neil, you're so stupid. Stupid, man. Well, Brian, is there anything else, like, are there any other big topics besides the voting age that
your group specifically addresses? Like, what's the I guess, what would you say is the biggest topic if it's the voting age? What's the second biggest topic?
You mean that we're like advocating?
Currently advocating for?
That we're, currently advocating for. I'd say at least where the most focus is now besides the voting age is student rights. And I mean, things.
So what would that entail, basically?
Right. So just students trying to change things in their schools, like dress codes or school uniforms or like corporal punishment, which is like, yeah, still a thing in a lot of places. Or like free speech issues comes up a lot. Like schools, like saying students can't wear a certain thing or like publish a certain thing in the school newspaper. Yeah.
That is really fascinating. Have you had any like have you talked to any students about these kind of things? Like, I'm sure you have.
Right. Yeah, we have a few chapters starting up. I think most of them are mostly focused on voting age. We definitely had chapters that have like successfully made changes in their schools, like changed dress code policies and like school to prison pipeline type stuff, and a lot of stuff like that.
That's really cool. That's cool that you made some progress in that. Yeah, I never really got far enough into school to where like any of that kind of stuff was a problem. But
Right.
it was interesting like talking to my friends on the car ride home, like what's going on at their public school. It's really fascinating, like the stuff that comes up, and it seems like it's all deeply rooted in just like mistrust of kids and people wanting to act out.
Right.
It was like disgusting. Like they were saying that there was someone that like drew swastikas and feces in the bathroom.
Oh yeah.
It was like, jeez. So I mean, I'd rather some other thing, but I mean, it seems like that's a lot to do with like just people trying to.
Well, I definitely think my kids are going to grow and become independent and being able to nurture their independence in an environment like that, and then I can hold them to a standard of someone who's been in that environment their entire life. Like, it's so ridiculous that people try to hold their kids to a standard that they've looked to a kid that has been in this environment, and their kid has never been in that environment their entire life, and act like, oh, wow, they don't act like you. Well, yeah. If I took a standardized test and I failed, you wouldn't say, well, he's just not meant for the public school system. You see, no, you'd say I'd never been exposed to it, so I didn't learn it. Like, why can't that exact same logic be applied with separate schools and alternative education?
Yeah, you'd have no experience at all with it. That is really interesting. I never really thought about it like that, Neil. Like that they've never.
Well, I'm just a genius, Dylan. So.
Yeah, I'm aware now. I think you've just gotten lucky too many times. No, I definitely think that's really interesting. But like I was talking to my friends too, is like, because I know a big problem with public schools now have been like juuling, like kids getting really into like smoking jewels. It's actually really funny. The other day we were out, I was hanging out with a few of my friends, and these kids came up to us and they asked if we wanted a hit off a jewel. So my brother, who's 10, was gonna go over and be like, "Hey, can I take a hit?"
As a joke. All the concerned parents out there, like, oh my God, now I can't believe that. No, it was a joke.
No. But it was like interesting because I was talking about that on the car at home about like what should you do if a parent finds like drugs or alcohol or like a jewel, like what would happen? And it was interesting like what they thought, because it seems to me like I think that's really interesting. It seems to me like you don't even take well, first of all, the desire to have that would probably be diminished greatly in a household that was alternative education,
because
they're like
freedom.
Pretty
don't
logical.
Seek an escape, and they're pretty logical, and they have the responsibility. The reason they have the responsibility is because they're actually given the chance to nurture that responsibility. So it's pretty unlikely that would ever happen in a household like that. However, it is an interesting thought experiment. How would that play out? And how should it play out?
Yeah.
It should play out, I mean, just the same way as if you find some like adult friend with something you don't like or whatever, like you just talk to them about it or don't, and like preferably don't really judge their life choices. That's
what I was saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think all drugs, this is me and my viewpoint, but I think all drugs should be legal. I think if anybody, if an adult or anyone wants to take a drug and makes that decision and understands the consequences, that's their prerogative. I don't think we should get involved with that. I think it actually plays into this whole prison industrial complex we have and privatized prisons, and it plays into all of this. It goes way back, but I think it just doesn't make any sense. Like, why are we regulating what people put in their bodies? They can do whatever the heck they want to themselves. And I understand that parents have a will to protect their children, and that should definitely be demonstrated in how they speak to them and say, I want what's best for you, and I don't think, and I just want you to know that this can be compromising to your health, it can be compromising to your life. And I think that the fear of getting caught also kind of plays into this idea of us versus them, rather than just someone I can go to and just talk about my problems with.
Definitely creates distrust where it's like, well, I don't feel like I can go and talk to you about this. Like I think like when you don't trust your parents, if your parents don't trust you, and most likely that means you don't trust your parents, it's like that's not a great place for a child, because now they have like no one to talk to. It's not like most likely they're not going to talk to a teacher, because I doubt a teacher is going to trust them that much. Like maybe if you're lucky you have a teacher that's like that you can go and talk to, or like it's just a horrible environment for a child when you realize that your parents don't trust you anymore.
Right.
It's like wow, that really sucks.
Yeah. Like if I found out that like my friend or someone like that or just didn't trust me at all, like that's pretty damaging, and that totally
I don't trust you at all.
and that totally changes your relationship.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But I know that is something really interesting to like, because
there's lack of reciprocity there when it comes to I guess insight, where there isn't any reciprocity when it comes to just talking. Like you'll see parents talking at kids but not with kids. You see adults talking at kids but not with kids.
Mm-hmm. Even like this whole notion of like talking back, like how dare you give me a
how dare you talk back? What the heck does that even mean? Like I never understood like talk back, like back talk. What is back talk? Like just speaking back. Like if you told me something and I just sat there and did nothing, like what you'd be like, oh my God, he's being so rude. But if I say anything back, that's back talk. It's basically, yeah, back talk always kind of, I had no idea what it was. The first time I was accused of back talk, I was like, wait, talking back? I don't understand. And I kept asking like, I was really young. My parents thought I was like joking and trying to like mess with them. But I was asking, wait, am I back talk? Like they'd ask me a question like, oh, do you want a pepper on that or something? And I'll be like, is it back talk if I answer? Because they thought I was joking, but I was a really young kid. And I was legitimately asking, is this back talk? Like back talk is so stupid. Like it confuses parents. If you accuse your child of back talk, it confuses them to no end. Okay. It confused me for at least a year. I had no idea.
Wow, you're really stupid.
I was really stupid.
No, I had the same experience.
Just talking back mean back talk? Like I didn't know what it meant.
I was like, I get the concept now, but
yeah.
I never really get it. I was like,
I mean, I understand the concept of it, but like in theory, I understand what it is. But in practice, it's basically just saying anything your parents don't like.
Mm-hmm. So Brian, who's like you wake up in the morning, like who do you talk to like change the stuff? You like start messaging high schools and stuff?
That would, like, if there was just a way to like get in touch with students at any high school, that would like make my life a lot easier. But yeah, I mean, with like as far as like outreach and recruiting new people, a lot of what I've done is like gone around to like different places like rallies or concerts or whatever where there are a lot of young people and just signed people up, and I've like that's gone well, like because like anywhere there were a lot of young people, there were going to be a lot of young people who like want more rights. And but like besides that, which like you can, I mean, you're probably only going to meet people from like certain local places depending on where you are. But it's just like someone who wants to start a chapter in wherever reaches out to us, since there's not really a lot we can do beyond just like getting in touch with organizations or people we know and just networking through them.
That's pretty cool. I was gonna ask some. Have you had any trouble like convincing students about this? Because I know I definitely have. Where,
Yeah,
I try and
like
explain the
some kids don't
school.
even think that they deserve or should have freedom, which I think is so ludicrous. But I guess it's just the sign of how deep this cultural thing goes. Yeah.
Right. And yeah, I think that's just the whole like internalized depression thing. Like people, I mean, in any kind of oppressed group, like there are going to be a lot of people who,
People try to justify it.
yeah, right. Yeah, feel like they,
Like during slavery, they called them, I think they called these people who like, they basically betrayed their fellow slaves. And I think they called them
like slavers or something.
Uncle Tom, like something like that. Because the concept was that they basically just went for, instead of actually going up again. And I can sympathize with that, because imagine having to sit your entire life and be like, I am totally, it's obviously not to the extent of young people because slavery, but it's like, I am totally oppressed in every way. They try to justify it in their head, right? And you see that to a lesser extent, but still to an extent with youth.
right. Yeah. And yeah, you see it. And I think anyone who is, part of any kind of marginalized group has to kind of go
No
through,
matter the extent, yeah.
because I think that to some extent, like, yeah, everyone, like whatever, like oppressed identities they have, suffers from that.
Mm-hmm. And like, I was gonna ask, have you, I can't really think of anything to ask. I think it's been really interesting though. Like just getting the word out about like trust. Like that seems like the core of it in a lot of ways. It's just about trust and getting like adults to trust their kids and getting kids to trust themselves
Right.
that they'll like succeed and thrive. Because most people, when I tell about our school, it's like, what aren't you gonna just sit around and do all day? Which is like the most stupid thing I've ever heard. Because
Right.
I would give
like,
someone $100 if they sat around for an entire day and did nothing. No one has ever done that in the history of planet Earth.
something would be wrong, like really wrong.
I mean, has anyone ever just sat there and just like for an entire day? No. And the thing is, what they're trying to say, they try to veil it in this odd language. But what they're really trying to say is they're not doing anything I personally, with my own biases, see as productive.
Right.
Which is totally ridiculous.
Right. And if someone's like literally doing nothing, that's like meditation or something, like that's...
Yeah, I think that's also beneficial. Like, I mean, doing nothing can be good sometimes.
Right. Unless it's like doing nothing in a classroom where it's like,
yeah.
it like leaves you just feeling really bad and like you're supposed to be doing something, but you don't know what it is or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that's, if you're just making your own decisions and stuff.
Brian, what was your like public school experience or a private? Because you said you went to private school.
Right. I mean, yeah, I transferred to like a private school starting in like 6th grade, and I mean, but yeah, and before that, I just kind of didn't get anything out of school. I like barely even remember anything before I was like 12 when I like transferred to that private school. But yeah, I have no idea what I would be like if I didn't transfer to that school. Since yeah, the school I went to was just a really amazing and like inspiring place where there were just a lot of amazing like people and classes and like community stuff. And then so I feel like I've definitely just been kind of like formed by being at these like two like really unique and like empowering private schools.
It's really cool. And what was I forget if you said it or not. What was like what was different about them from public schools, or if there was anything really?
Yeah, I think, I mean, a lot of it was just having a lot of autonomy and being trusted, and then also that the schools really like empowered individual students learning in their own way, and like the first school I was at was like founded on like the multiple intelligences theory, which like yeah, is that like everyone has their own unique way of learning, so it should be tailored to each individual person. And yeah, that I mean, people could basically like do what they want most of the time. Like people could like eat lunch where they want to. Like classes weren't like divided by age. So like my best friends I've had were like a year younger than me, and I had like a lot of classes with them and stuff, even though we wouldn't have been on like the same grade in public school. So yeah, just really
Hmm. That is really fascinating. I like that a lot. Like that's a lot like my brother Andrew. It's funny because all of his friends, like like one of his like actual friends, not just like my friend. Like he also is my friend. Like my brother's 11 and he went to his friend's birthday party. He was also my friend. It was his 18th birthday party. And it's like it was like completely normal. Like it was not odd that he was there. It
right.
wasn't like he was just tagging along.
Yeah.
And same with like his other friends. Like one of his best friends is 17. Like they hang out all the time and they like to go on walks or they like play video games together. Like it's just odd. Like it's not odd, but it's like funny. Like especially for other people to see. Like they go around and they think that he's like his little brother. Or they're just friends. Or like it's really I think that's one of the awesome things about Sudbury. And it is also one of the stupidest arguments I've ever heard against it is like I got this one time. It was like, well, if the 18-year-old is hanging around the 11-year-old, won't that make the 18-year-old dumber?
What?
It's like, what? That's like nonsense in a lot of ways.
uh,
That's like, first off, assuming that the 11-year-old is like stupid.
Yeah.
And also assuming that the 18-year-old like sucks in the stupidness.
Dylan, what you should have said is that, so does that mean that me talking to you makes me know less about...
Like they were older than me. I was like, does talking to me make you stupid? It's like,
Yeah, does talking to me make you stupid? Like,
right.
it's so
And
dumb.
assuming there's, I mean, even such a thing as stupidity, and that's like even a bad thing. Like,
yeah.
I mean, maybe it's like a good
Like,
thing.
a lot of times people can't control, I don't think you understand, so you can't control you can control being knowledgeable about a subject, but you can't control the baseline mental capacity you're given at birth.
I think that's, I mean, I guess so, but like the kind of idea of mental capacity in the first place.
There is like, the idea, you have to take into account at least a small amount of that into account when you are talking, because if you're going to be talking about, for example, like a learning disability, you have to, to talk about that would imply that there is something to be disabled from, right? So there is at least something there that people can't control that they're born with. And I'm not saying that that's at least even something strong.
I think more about just the way that their unique mind doesn't really fit into the way society is structured, and that there's something objectively,
Yeah, and just because someone can't do something that isn't seen as productive in someone's eyes doesn't mean that they can't do something that seems productive in their eyes or just by them. Like, what is even the purpose of life in the beginning? Like, in the first place, like, why do we have to assign these?
So deep.
What?
I was like, that's so deep, Neil.
It's so deep, yeah. Why do we have to assign these arbitrary things? Like, I understand, like, I totally understand. And I even support the idea of trying to get your kids to see. Of course, I can imagine a parent wanting their kid to be able to be financially independent and be able to, sustain themselves to at least or greater and sustain themselves. But I think also the idea of happiness is to be taken into account. What are you going to do to be happy? Not just what are you going to need to do to obtain, fiscal, wealth.
Mm-hmm. And I think even I'm like trying to figure that out for myself because I think it's probably somewhere in between that. Like I like to lean more towards like the happiness side of things, besides like the fistful of cash. But, like I it's interesting talking to my mom about this because she kind of has an interesting point of view. Because she has been working in kind of like executive business for like long, maybe like 30 years or something like that. Not so much the past, I don't know, like 20 years because they started their own business from home, like to spend more time with us. But like it's really interesting because there was a time when she had, like she was like kind of top, like high up in a business, in like a corporation, and she was making nice money. So she was like sometimes it's finding like a balance between being able to like afford stuff, like having freedom. Like in some ways money is freedom, but my argument always is like, well, it's like hard to say that because you're taking away freedom to get that money in the first place. And so that's kind of like been a back and forth, but it's like her argument is always, well, you haven't had enough. It's like starting off stupid, but I think in a few ways it makes sense. Like you haven't had enough experience being like really poor and also being like having a lot of money, like seeing what both of those lives are like, which I think is interesting. But it's like still trying to find a balance in between that, in between like having fistfuls of cash and being really happy, which is interesting too. Like I was listening to a lot of people who play that card game I like, and that the convention, there's lots of big time money transactions going on, like a lot of money. Like the local card shop that I go to, they had a venue, they were selling stuff, and they made in profit like $30,000, like a good amount, like a fair amount of money. And so it's interesting. Like I overheard these other guys talking how like his parents don't think he has a real job, but I mean, he's making pretty good money selling magic cards because he can, like, there's no tax dollars on it because you're just like, it's like selling cards on eBay essentially. And it's like it's an easy market to get into if you know like anything about it at all. And also like it's completely unregulated, like completely unregulated. So there are people that like abuse it, but I felt bad because this guy, I mean, he was like, my parents don't think I have a real job, but I mean, he's making a lot of money doing it. But I think it's interesting, like that stereotype of having a quote unquote real job, but I don't even really know what that means, having a real job. It's kind of like a complete nonsense argument. A real job, it's like, it doesn't really mean anything.
Right.
I mean, everything is a real job, I guess. But I think, like, to get back to what we were talking about earlier, like stuff that's new, that was on my mind. I think that's so interesting in humans is like the fear of stuff that's new. It seems like that's, like, it seems, I mean, I'm just making this up, but maybe that's like ingrained in us from evolution, like just being like afraid of everything. Like stay with it, that's new. Like, I don't know what that means. Like normally it's like, oh, there's a new animal I see. Like, is that going to kill me? Like, let's stay away from that. Like kind of stuff. Well, maybe I'm just making that up, but it makes a decent amount of sense. I think that's really interesting just in general, like the fear of new things, like the fear of the internet, the fear of, I mean, even like the fear of death. Like people, like death is essentially new, even though it's not a new concept. It's new to people because they haven't ever experienced it. So it's like the fear of death, like just anything that's new, people are afraid of. I mean, I see
Although the fear of death is pretty valid, I'm probably going to be afraid to die until the day I die. So
yeah, I'm not saying it's invalid. Like if you see a new like gun, or not, a gun's not a good example. Like if you see like a new wild animal, it's like stay away from that. It'll probably kill me.
Yeah.
It's not invalid.
But you shouldn't. But it also doesn't mean that you should objectively look at it, which is, I think, people's failing. They get to the first step of skepticism, but they're never able to move past that.
Mm-hmm. But it's definitely been like that with internet and with alternative education. Because also people see this as like, it's interesting too. It's like, oh, this is just part of like the new hippie, like leftist movement. It's like, well, that's kind of retarded. This has been around for like a good amount of time. Like most of the stuff is not new. Like John Holt isn't new. Like all this stuff is like the 60s, 50s and 60s. Like I get that a lot. Like this is just like new age liberal bullshit.
Right. Well, I mean,
and even if it is, why does that matter?
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
that doesn't. Yeah.
Right, but I mean, also, I mean, youth having more.
Right.
I mean, youth being treated as equals basically has been around longer than youth being oppressed. Just like looking at, I mean, from the evidence we have of like how youth have been raised for most of history, it's like our current system of oppression is what's new here.
Mm-hmm. What's the history of like?
Yeah, that what you just said really interests me. What do you mean that? What do you mean by that?
Like looking at I've kind of just started writing a research paper on this, but looking at like the way that like youth are raised in various like indigenous cultures that like haven't been touched by colonialism until recently. A lot of them treat youth like equally to adults, basically. Like they just learn from Peter Gray also did some research on this, and there's yeah, a few other I mean a lot of other research that's been
So like kind of pre-colonialization civilizations.
What?
So kind of like colonialization civilizations, and because of kind of the colonialization of basically the world, and then that world moving forward, that's how we kind of have seen this institution develop.
Yeah, I guess, and you could say that. It's I mean kind of so yeah, so observing various like indigenous cultures that still exist or have existed until recently, they're yeah, like youth grow up just learning through like observing the adults and learning through play, and then just like interact with their whole like band, not with just their parents. And then and like there are, I mean, also other indigenous cultures where like youth, I mean, where youth are treated like, I mean, aren't equal to adults, but there's evidence that like those cultures are only like that because they've been influenced by like colonialism and stuff, and that like the cultures where there is age equality are actually older. So there's, I mean, it's not like totally proven or anything, but it's like very likely that like for most of history there just hasn't been age discrimination. But then like agriculture was a big thing, and I mean agriculture like made it so that youth worked alongside their parents instead of just as part of these tribes. So then like, I mean, yeah, we can observe from like archaeology stuff or any societies that have agriculture but like are still pre-industrial, that like youth faced a lot of oppression from their parents in those situations because of just the power dynamic with like you've got these two parents and their kids instead of just like a band where everyone's equal. But it still wasn't, but they were still kind of not really excluded from being adults, and they could play a large role in adult society. But then like when the Industrial Revolution happened, that was when just like the definition of labor totally changed. Like people weren't working to survive. People were working to maintain this like complex system none of us really understand. So then there was just like more labor than there was, I mean, there were more people than there was labor, so they needed to like just put a bunch of people somewhere where they couldn't really contribute. So that's how they came up with like school. And another part of it was just like, and this is, yeah, mentioning like John Taylor Gatto, who, yeah, died today, unfortunately, but like his book, The Underground History of American Education, documents this a lot. And that shows that like people like going back to like the Prussian Empire in the 1700s through like Andrew Carnegie and John D. Rockefeller and those folks, they they wrote a lot about how they were designing our current school system to basically keep the lower classes in line, because like they wanted people to just believe, I mean, to teach people to like stay in their place and to kind of like arrange all their work according to like these objective standards and like the ring of the bell and stuff, to basically just to make a society that runs the way ours does. So it's even like intentional in a large part how yeah, stuff is the way it is now.
Mm. Yeah, I get that a lot. That is intense. But like, man, I was gonna go with something, and I fucking forgot. I hate that so much. The Neil. But like, do you know? Have there been any studies on how youth are treated in like primitive cultures, like before, like ancient cultures, I should say?
Right. Yeah, that's what I mentioned. I mean, so yeah, there.
You just mean like you use that as an example for like primitive culture?
Right. So I mean, there's like a lot of yeah, there yeah, a lot of like indigenous cultures that still exist, or at least like haven't been wiped out,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
weren't like wiped out by like neo-colonial stuff until the last few decades, have like yeah, treated children equally and functioned like unschooling or Sudbury schools or anything like that, where yeah, the students just learn through
Just like natural learning.
yeah, right. And
Mm.
yeah, there, I'm trying to find where in one of Peter Gray's studies, he kind of mentioned specifically some of the cultures that he like talked to people who lived them and studied them. Yeah, there are, I mean, some in, yeah, like Africa, Asia, New Zealand, South America, and
I,
and yeah,
I want to start using like, because people ask me a lot, like what the school is I go to. I think what's really interesting is like it teaches you how to learn.
right,
Like, I think that's a great way of describing it.
Like schools may teach you, but they don't teach you how to learn.
It's
yeah,
not like you have a desire to learn or to ask questions, really. I mean, it's like saying like it's like it seems like a freaking facade that every question you ask will be answered. It's like sometimes, but not always, or not even really close to always. Like it's not a great environment. Like public school is not a great environment for asking questions or challenging. Like how dare you ever challenge anything they say?
right,
I mean,
like
that would be
yeah, like just conventional school system that like most public and private schools go by just teaches that there's like one objective truth and like you can never question what your teacher are teaching you, which just like yeah teaches people that
mhm.
they need to just look at everything like hyper rationally and not I mean you just have to kind of like accept that there's one way of looking at the world when that's
Oh, yeah, I know. It's like that's a really scary thing is when people start to believe that there's only one entire truth. Like
right,
it's impossible to be questioned. Like it's just that's one of the craziest things is that you have a place that every single child has to go through, or has to, but essentially has to go through, and basically they can just write whatever they want, and the kids have to believe them. There's no way of challenging that. If you
right,
do challenge it, I mean, you get in trouble. You
right,
get punished for challenging, which seems insane. Like that's such an insane belief that if you challenge something, then you're gonna get punished. And
right,
just assume that you should never challenge, which is like something I think is so interesting about our school and even talking to my other friends who plays Magic because most of them are adults. Most people who play are not children. Like maybe out of the 30 people I know from that, like really know, maybe like 5 or 6 of them are kids like my age, which is really interesting. And he's a lawyer and he always tells his like nieces and nephews like argue everything, challenge everything. Well, I mean, because he's a lawyer, but it's really interesting like how you really at a subject school you really do have to challenge everything and like call people out on their bullshit. Like kids don't ever do that. Like call something out, like call someone out on their bullshit. It's like, oh well, I don't wanna challenge you because you're probably right. It's like if you're right, then I'll be wrong. I don't mind. Like that's the great thing about not caring if you're wrong. I mean, to an extent, like if I'm wrong about something, it's like, oh, that's interesting. I'll change my mind about that. But I think it's like something that's so important that public school doesn't teach you because it teaches you one definitive truth. Which is
right,
so scary when you're not taught to even think about challenging or
right,
like that's it like you hear a superior and you're like well, they're right, I guess. It's like, well, like bullshit. Like it was funny. Neil's never been to public school, and he was telling me like I was telling him about public school. It's like, well, you're not really allowed to talk unless you're talked to. And he was like, but what if they're wrong? It's like, Neil, because we had this plan that we were going to go into like a public school and cause havoc. We thought that was
You
going
were gonna do like a sit-in or something.
to, yeah, we thought that was going to be kind of fun.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Are you still thinking of doing that?
Well, with the problem
That'd be-
was that,
Well,
is that
from what I
now, is
Yeah,
that
what-
now that we'd go to high school, it'd be like kind of on our permanent. We were like, oh, we basically were like, because we were thinking about it basically as we were just reaching high school age, we were like, oh crap, we either have to do it right now, or it'll be basically on like quote, like because since it is a high school diploma which you actually would keep throughout your life, colleges would look at that, or people may look at that, and and I don't want to. I don't want people to think that, because they could basically write their interpretation of the situation, right? So even though we may just be doing a peaceful sit, which we would be doing, people are definitely gonna interpret that in different ways, especially since it's gonna be in a high school after a certain point. And the problem is that we were right at that edge, and then we were like, okay, well, I guess now we can't do it since it'd be at a high school, just in case we
But
have
it's
that.
still, it would still be interesting to do some sort of like protest at a public school.
Yeah, we could
What if-
still do that.
But our plan, Brown, was to like, not just like go over and like protest. It was like to enlist ourselves in public school, like sign ourselves up to be in public school.
Yeah, like literally we'd sign up to be in public school.
and somehow like, it was like, I don't know, like just run around like screaming. That was our
No,
original.
we wouldn't do that, Dylan. It'd be a sit-in. We wouldn't listen to people. We just sit down peacefully. And it was supposed to be like a peaceful sit-in, but we didn't roll in public school. Do that.
What were you gonna say there, Brian? It looked like you had something.
Right. So, I mean, you worried it would be like illegal, or
Yeah.
you got arrested for it?
Not really illegal, but more so that since it's high school and high school is the diploma that you carry, I feel like people would, either colleges or employers or any, so that could come up in your future. If it's at like an elementary school, I think it's much less of a concern if you enroll there just to basically protest, because none of that really follows you. The degree, there's no degree you get that follows you.
Right.
But when it comes to high school, that's taken quite a bit more seriously, and you have the actual high school diploma that you can carry into college and then or into later in life, and that can be a problem if the college actually writes down on on a record, this person came enrolled in our school, and they can basically write their interpretation of events, right?
Rolling. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, they can write their interpretation of events without any concern for what you have to say, because that's basically how it works.
Right.
And that could be taken into consideration. Because if someone looks at you and goes, oh, did you go to high school at time or get a high school diploma? If that ever comes up, because that is basically your high, because in their mind, this is the only high school experience they had. They just sat down and did nothing, basically for a day and then left. Like that could, so we were like, we have to do it before high school. But at that time, we were almost high school age. You're like, crap, we missed the window. But it's still an idea. I think we're still thinking about doing it, like exercising it somehow.
Yeah. Right. That sounds
Just sitting in.
Yeah. Yeah. Doing some kind of protest outside your local school.
Yeah, I still think that would be really something interesting to do. Something like that. To just spread the word. I mean, for the most part.
Right. Yeah. I think just the biggest thing going against separating schools and unschooling is that most people either don't know about it or think it's only for rich kids. So if you can just educate people about them, that they exist, that's a huge step.
Yeah, just letting people know that they're they should have rights.
Right.
But yeah, maybe that's something we should do in the future. I think that'd be really fun too.
Right.
I mean, we were gonna do that before, just hand out flyers. That was something we were planning on doing.
Oh, yeah.
More so,
Like out of school, yeah.
yeah, as a school, just more so to get kids to come to our school. That was the intent. But I think
Or
the
just to
intent for this-
spread the word, I guess.
Mhm.
I feel like it might give us bad press, though. Even though we're
actually,
not doing anything wrong.
I learned, Neil, that so my aunt was telling me, so my aunt is a hairdresser,
Hmm.
and she was telling me a few of her clients think that they've heard of our school and think that some people still think that that's that we just watch porn all day.
What? Oh my
Yeah,
god.
people still think that. That was only for like a couple hours.
So no, not us watching porn for a couple of hours. Just to be clear,
No.
Dylan is
Yeah.
articulating it. Someone spread that rumor for a couple of hours. We didn't watch porn for a couple of hours. Oh my God, Dylan. You worded that so stupidly.
I did not.
You
Yeah.
worded that like a moron.
It's just like I just think in my head like assuming that we don't.
You'd be a horrible person to represent a school when you become a class. It only happened for a couple of hours. Wait, no, I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about that. Yeah. No, what happened was someone spread that rumor for a couple of hours and we deleted them and blocked them from the South Jersey Separate School Facebook page. That didn't actually happen. Someone just said that randomly and it was really dumb. So the people that comment on our Facebook page are so weird. Someone just commented, "This place is cursed," and it was just so weird. People comment those random stuff. Like there was this one drone shot of a lake, and it was us talking about how like, oh, you can develop social skills at a summer school. And someone developed some type, what social skills? Drowning each other. It's just people type of weird stuff. And someone just typed, "This place is haunted." And it's just the most random crap people type. And yeah, one of the things that we watch porn and decapitations. So
Yeah, but somehow I don't really know how people got to that thought. But I guess it's still around. I was really surprised because we got that deleted after a minute. She was just very angry at us because like she wanted to use our building for free and have nothing to
or
do
something,
with us.
and you were like, no. Or the YMCA said, yeah, no, there's a school there. Because we lease out a building on a YMCA camp. And that she was kind of like, oh, I want to use this building or something for free. I don't know what it was. And the YMCA was just kind of like, yeah, no, there's a school there. Can't do that. You can't just take the building. And she got really pissed at us or something. And then she tried to talk to us and be like, can we use the building? And we're like, no, we're a school.
But it was, I hope somehow that fixes. Like somehow people realize that we don't, watch porn all day. She said porn and beheadings. That's what she said. And then we were like, what? Where'd you ever get that from? She was like, well, I said they could do that. She's like, no, you
First
didn't.
of all, that's not what she said. Well, I could go out and shoot a bunch of people. Therefore, this is wrong. That's so dumb. Like, living is wrong because if you're living, you could go out and shoot some people. Like, that logic is so flawed.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, you just gotta. Guess that is what we do all day. But yeah, I think that there is a really awesome future for youth rights. I hope it keeps moving forward.
Definitely.
But like, yeah, that would be really fun to go to like a high school. Have you done anything like that, Brian, or other people have?
I mean, it's mostly stuff coming from people who were like based at high schools, and are like doing outreach for the chapter there. But I think that's, yeah, I haven't heard of something like that exactly, of people from like outside of high school coming there, but I think that's definitely a great idea.
Mm-hmm. Has like how many chapters do you have for high schools?
It's kind of, in flux, since there are a lot of like chapters that are like just starting up, but I think right now we've got like 4 like solid confirmed chapters. And in the past we'd have like I think like 10 or 11 at one point, and yeah, we definitely hope to have a lot more.
That's pretty cool. Has like who started it? How did it start if there's not one person?
Right. It started in 1998, which was like the same year I was born. It's a school like, as old as the organization.
Mm-hmm, that's pretty cool.
But I think it's kind of spread out of this other organization called like ASFAR, like American Society for Information Restriction. It's only lasted for like 1 year before it sort of split into NIRA, and I think it just wasn't run that well or whatever. And I think ASFAR was like started by people who kind of met through the internet, basically. Like I think just the creation of the internet in the 90s and stuff was like a big thing for youth rights. Since like the movement had kind of died out after the 70s, there was this like youth rights was just kind of a big theme in 60s social movements, and the biggest thing for that was like this organization called the Youth Liberation Front of Ann Arbor, in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And then, but I mean, it was just kind of run by a specific group of high schoolers. So then they all just kind of moved on to other things. And the movement kind of gave way to just like superficial children's rights stuff about like how children should have like food to live, which is like, I mean, true, obviously, but like it's the focus spread to like rights, like adults doing things for children instead of like actually empowering youth and having them fight for their own rights. But yeah, then in the 90s, there were just like started to be an internet community for youth rights, which led to Myra happening eventually.
Are there any other groups that are doing stuff like what Naira's doing, or is it pretty much?
We're basically the only organization that functions the way we do as a like political organization. There's another group called the Free Child, I think, which has like a lot of research and stuff like that. Mostly, kind of like putting these resources out there. I think they've got like events and stuff they do. And well, I mean, as far as like self-directed education stuff, there's like Alliance for Self-Directed Education, which is does a kind of, but yeah, which also advocates a lot for unschooling and democratic schooling, and they've got a lot of great stuff that we're hoping to work with them. And besides that, there's just a lot of like youth-led political movements starting up that aren't explicitly about youth rights, but just the fact that they're being led by young people is great.
That is really great. Yeah, that is one thing I really liked about the March for Our Lives, is like it's cool to see kids like out there.
Right. I mean, they like gave more like speaking time to like a 12-year-old than they did to Lin-Manuel Miranda, which was amazing. And like they had like all these celebrities who wanted to speak, but like they gave more focus to like the youth who like deserved to be up there speaking. And then during their speeches, I think it was just so clear that they were kind of doing a better job than the adult activist could, because they were just really willing to take risks, and they weren't worried about like what nonprofit will hire them next, or if they can get elected to office, or what people think about them. They were just really authentic and raw and spontaneous.
That is something I think that's really interesting about the youth rights movement, is like, it's like just throughout time, it's like like you just get older and then you're not a child anymore. Which I think is kind of funny. It's like it would be weird to have the head of like, I don't know, like rights for Native Americans just be like an old white dude. Like that's what I find like so kind of a little funny about
it's the unique thing about youth rights, I guess.
Yeah, it is really unique, because like eventually
or you could flip it around and say that everybody's been a youth, so everybody's been a subject to this, so everybody should be fighting for this. Why shouldn't everybody fight for this? Because everyone has experienced this.
Right, and it affects people through the rest of their lives, which I think is what makes this just the like issue. I think is
this literally affects everyone.
Right.
Like, sure, youth are a minority, but youth have been the 100% of the population.
It is funny. The first time I ever really heard about like a youth rights organization was actually like, I don't watch a lot of it, but it was, God, I can't forget. It was like Charlie Sheen, like really famous White House movie, like not movie, TV show. Like, God, how can I think of it? Like super famous. Like it's really like it has Rob Lowe on it, and well, whatever. Very popular White House TV show, and like they had this group of like kind of like youth rights organization on, and it was really interesting listening to their arguments. Like at first they were just like a pesky group of kids that were just like bothering like the president, and then and like the Secretary of State, like throughout the entire episode.
Huh. Okay, West Wing, I guess.
Yeah, West Wing.
Okay, I need to find that episode then. That sounds great.
Yeah, it was. They talked. It was like a whole group of youth rights, like people.
Oh, cool.
Like they did a whole episode on it.
Wow.
I thought it was really interesting.
Right.
Like it was. Their main argument was like, well, kids should be able to vote because it's going to affect things that's going to happen when they're adults.
Right.
Like it's not just like we should be voting for what's going to happen to us. It's not like it doesn't affect us. Like it will affect us eventually.
Oh
And
yeah.
that was like the first time I ever really even heard anything like that. But I wasn't a big fan. Like I didn't watch a lot of it. My mom watched a lot of it, so I just overheard it. Like I watched a little bit with her, and I just saw that. I don't know exactly what episode it is or anything like that.
Right. But yeah, I'll try to find that because yeah, I mean, I think just the biggest thing going against the movement currently is that most people don't know it exists.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's like one of those things I think if a lot of people knew it existed and just like the basic thoughts on it. Like, oh, that's something I wanted to ask you. Is there like, if you could get one message out to everyone, like if like could say like one, like what would that be?
Hmm. I guess that like youth oppression exists and it's as harmful as any other oppression, and it's something that we should all keep in mind and try to fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that is really.
I would say probably just give trust a try. Just try to trust. And if you're going to say the whole argument, well, I don't know if my kids would be good for that. I don't know. Well, you haven't even
Just try.
tried. Just try. Just try.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I'm
I
not
think-
saying a week. I'm not saying a month. Give it a honest to God try where you can say with confidence, I did it for an acceptable amount of time.
Right.
Yeah. Like I know that actually like the first time I ever really heard of unschooling, like I was really young. I was like just going through YouTube and it was like worst mom ever ? And it was like she must have been like an unschooling mom or something like that. But it was like she lets her kids eat as much ice cream as they want all day or like cookies. And I was like, wow, she must be really stupid.
I can
Like,
eat as much ice cream as I want, but I do not.
I choose not to.
I have not eaten ice cream in multiple months.
But then I
I kind of
thought
want to
about
eat ice cream now. I might.
then I thought about it for a little bit. I was like back then I thought about it and I was like, I guess I can eat as much ice cream as I want. And it was like
You just
interesting.
don't.
I just don't because I don't want to eat it. It's like all that ice cream. But like even another video, it was actually like a BuzzFeed video or something about this mom. It was like, I'll try like letting my kids do whatever they want all day. And it was like inspired by like an unschooling mom or something. It was
I
interesting.
saw that. I saw that video.
Even she was like, well, I'm not going to let my kids eat as much ice cream. It was like, what's another, like, that's obvious. Like, just let them eat as much ice cream. Like, I doubt if they eat an entire ice cream, they're going to enjoy that very much. Like,
Yeah.
afterwards, it's like, yeah, they won't touch ice cream again for like a while.
Guarantee you they'll never do that again.
Like that's why I'll never eat a whole box of Oreos ever again.
Did you eat a whole box of Oreos, Dylan?
No, I've eaten about a half of one time, and then I didn't.
Did you never eat it again? Every half of that many Oreos again?
No, but I still eat Oreos. I mean, they're awesome. But like I think that's really like interesting. Just mainly getting the word out. It seems like one of those things a lot of people would agree on if they just knew it existed.
Right.
They just knew that there was a problem that it
Or at least it was talked about.
yeah, but it was talking
hasn't
about it all.
entered.
Yeah, which is, I mean, luckily starting to happen with the voting age thing, at least. Like, it's just becoming talked about now, and it's just getting a lot of people to start to support, that you just know that it's a thing. So hopefully that will just
Yeah.
spread to other issues and youth rights in general.
And I think like something great about this is like it doesn't impede on anyone else in any way. Like
Right.
really not at all. Like at least like in no way is this saying anything about racism being like I don't think anyone would take it like this, like racism being good, but it's like even for racism people thought it was difficult in a lot of ways because it impeded on their way of life of not having slaves. But even in this way it's like there's
How does it
nothing
impede on anyone's life? Like it's not.
yeah,
it's
it doesn't.
not-
It doesn't.
Now it's not a justification for slavery, obviously, that it makes your life better. But it's almost
No,
like
it's
there's
not.
no
No, but
justification.
I'm not. No, that wasn't.
No, I know that, Dylan. I know. But it's like there's no justification here other than the fear behind the doctrine that we now have.
It's just
Anyways,
like it
we gotta
doesn't.
move to closing statements now. So who wants to start with their closing statement?
I'll start.
Okay.
I just want to say it was really awesome talking to you, Brian, and I think it's just all about getting the word out more because it's such like a simple thing for people to understand. I think it's just people hearing it.
Yeah, I guess I was second, so you can have the last word. But I think, yeah, I am. I definitely, I mean, yeah, I feel like my closing statements have been, I don't really have like a final boom thing, like closing statement to make like that. I feel like it's just, like I said earlier, give it a try, give trust a try. You might be surprised at where it leads, and just discuss. And that's the thing I always try to promote. Please discuss. That honestly will make that increasing humankind's collective knowledge by discussing, or even just listening to this, just increasing your trying to go and listen to dissenting opinions. Just try. This goes for any argument, literally any side of any argument. Yeah, that's my closing statement.
Right. Yeah, it's been great talking to you too, and yeah, I look forward to hearing like what you two end up doing. Do that kind of like protesting you were thinking of, or any other advocacy stuff. Like definitely.
I know our friend Jim Flannery is really into organizing protests, so we definitely talk to him about that.
Right, great. But yeah, I look forward to hopefully keeping in touch with all of you, and seeing if you want to get involved with Myra at all.
Maybe we can work together. Yeah, awesome. All right, thank you for being on, and goodbye, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. We will see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
Humanity has been on an epic journey of discovery, learning the truth about the world we live in. New discoveries about the true origins of humanity, ancient history, free energy, as well as the systematic corruption of world governments are now on the forefront of our daily reality. Is the world headed towards destruction based on control and power? Or is an opportunity now being presented to shift and uplift into a higher consciousness? My name is Mel V, co-founder and creative director of Conscious Consumer Network, an independent broadcast network that was launched on the 1st of January 2015. In the last 3 years, Conscious Consumer Network has broadcast over 2,800 shows in multiple languages, featuring guests from across the world, whilst creating media that is aimed at the creation of a free, fair, peaceful, just, sustainable world. Conscious Consumer Network provides full training and an interactive support network for all broadcasters, and we are always looking for inspiring and educational content.
Hi, this is Lady Liberty.
And this is Miro Siegel.
In 2018, Conscious Consumer Network has expanded to multiple broadcast locations, increasing our availability and reach across the world, remaining on the cutting edge of independent media. If we wish to create a better world, we must first create better media, geared towards real education instead of indoctrination.
You guys really are what changing the world is going to be about. It's educating kids at a grassroots level.
Having become a pillar of stability in the turbulent world of independent media, we have even more going on in 2018. Conscious Consumer Network is a publicly funded network, and we rely on all of you to keep us on the air. Show your support for independent media by donating to our 2018 Network Support Fund. Dare to seek a better world. Support independent media.